Urban warfare has always been brutal. But today, small unit leaders have tools that can see above the battlefield and strike with precise and lethal effects, if they have the initiative to use them.
I'm the old man.
And I'm Lost LT 1775, an infantry officer and captain in the Marine Corps. Welcome to Lost LT's Razor, where the fight, the leader, and the lessons learned all matter. The platoon moved through the outskirts of a shattered industrial district, hidden among the skeletal remains of burned-out buildings. Enemy fire had pinned down the lead squad for over an hour. Every alley felt like a death trap. The platoon commander didn't rush the assault. Instead, he launched his ISR drone, with its camera live streaming to his rugged tablet. From above, the hidden fight came into focus. The drone revealed enemy positions on a rooftop in Overwatch, and a machine gun nest dug into the rubble of a collapsed wall. Rather than sending his Marines blind and into the breach, the commander coordinated a strike. 2 small FPVs were launched, weaving low between alleyways before diving onto the enemy positions with devastating precision. Seconds later, the assault squad surged forward. With the enemy suppressed and disoriented, Marines breached and cleared with speed, precision, and violence of action. What had been a stalemate turned into a decisive breakthrough. Not through brute force, but through initiative, exploiting the platoon's own unmanned systems to seize the tempo. This is urban warfare, where small unit leaders fight not just through walls, but above them.
Well, Lost LT, I was born in the Stone Age, but now we live in the drone age. How do small, unmanned aerial systems change the way we think about every aspect of urban warfare?
Stone Age and Drone Age. That was a little embarrassing, but I like it nonetheless. So I think small UAS changes the way we think about urban operations in general. And I mean, building on last episode, ISR drones provide real-time reconnaissance and targeting. And I think full stop, understanding that we now have the capability to provide depth before we ever have to push through an urban environment. We can send a drone up and identify targets of opportunity and confirm enemy composition, disposition, and strength deeper in the battlefield. Furthermore, the question needs to be raised, why would I send a Marine into a building first if I have a drone that can go in and check the rooms? Drones probably, we should be hesitant to say the word clear because we know as soon as we go in there and it looks to be empty, you can't make that assumption after the drone leaves. So that being said, yeah, I mean, drones could go in and clear or check rooms for us, and then you send Marines in afterwards.
I beckon back to my days in Iraq, and I remember we had these helium balloons that were up around the country. I assume they were doing some kind of ISR. Then at sometimes during the night, we would fire these massive flares. It would light up the darkness of night. But we probably don't even need that anymore. ISR drones do all of that now. Is that not right?
ISR drones are defined as intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. So it's not a specific platform. It's just what you're looking for it to do. So I mean, you send up a quadcopter or a fixed-wing drone could serve as an ISR drone. It's just the mission, really, that you're looking for it to do, of what you're asking it to achieve. So ISR, understanding what that acronym stands for, the power of what it can provide to the commander is pretty monumental. I mean, you can, again, throw up a drone that has constant eyes in the sky for you to identify targets of opportunity. It can confirm enemy positions. It can highlight where friendly forces are off to your flanks. I mean, there's a million different applications of using an ISR drone, but it just provides updated and real-time information to the commander. I think an important note there is that we need to have a great conversation with our drone operators and understanding what is important information for the commander to hear, because what we don't want to do is overwhelm them with so much information that it pulls them away from their ability to focus on the problem in front of them.
Maybe a dumb question, but do ISR drones ever have weapon systems on them, or is it just purely reconnaissance?
No, not a dumb question at all. I think depending, again, on what you are looking for. So when I think of the most effective way of employing drones in pairs, what I'm going to do is first launch my ISR drone to go find the enemy. When my ISR drone is up, it's loitering around, it's looking, it's most likely has a nicer camera on it. It can look in thermal, IR, infrared for those that don't know. And it can just, we're looking for signatures. We're looking for the enemy. Once we've identified an enemy position, then you launch the FPV drone, which is an armed asset most likely that is going to go strike a target of opportunity that you've identified. So ISR is step one. Because it's got a longer battery, it's got a longer time of flight, a little bit further range. And then again, as soon as you've identified that target, now you're going to track that target and make sure you stay with it, and then launch an FPV to go strike. I think that is that's the simplest way of employing them. But to answer your question, though, you can absolutely have a drone that serves both purposes. The only, I'd say, not risk, but maybe a capability that you lose if you have an FPV drone that you're trying to use as ISR. If you don't have another drone that's observing, then you're not really able to get that immediate battle damage assessment afterwards. So it's nice to employ them in pairs so that you've got one observing the effects of the other one that hits the target.
So you're kind of describing a two-step process here where drones first play a recon role, and then once after you've got the recon, it's either a suppression or aggression, right?
Step one for the leader is to again, have a drone up and conducting reconnaissance. So our urban attack cycle, the 5 phases of the assault that we define in, I think, Marine Corps Rifle Publication 3 TAC 10 Alpha, dot 1, 2, and 3. That's a lot of words and numbers. But what that means, for those that aren't familiar, is Marine Corps Rifle Squad, Marine Corps Rifle Platoon, Marine Corps Rifle Company, so on and so forth. There's foundational publications that have kind of defined the 5 phases of the assault. Also, recently I had an opportunity to work with Doctrine to get RIG-C, which stands for reconnaissance, isolation, gaining a foothold, seizing the objective, and consolidation and reorganization. Had a great opportunity to kind of work and get that integrated into the new MOUT publication that's coming out in fall of 2025. So that planning process and the urban attack cycle of RIG-C is the framework that I would look at now in an urban environment to how am I going to use drones to incorporate this stuff. So step one, like we said, step one of RIG-C is recon. So ISR drones are immediately up. We're identifying enemy positions. We're answering questions for ourselves. Enemy first, enemy always. But what does that mean? I need to get eyes in the sky and provide some depth before I ever cross the line of departure and go into the city or the town. I've already got ISR assets that are soaking that area and confirming my assumptions about the enemy. We know that reconnaissance is a continuous process throughout. So just because RIG-C flows sequentially in that order doesn't mean we do it once and we're done. From recon, we go into isolation. So step 2 of RIG-C is isolation. So I've got a known enemy position that I want to clear or seize, a certain objective building. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask myself the questions, what's the building composition so that I can best assign a weapon to target match to achieve my desired effects on the building? What avenues of approach am I going to take? What point of entry am I going to make into the building? So on and so forth. There's a million questions that we're asking from recon that drones can help. From there, I start asking, okay, I know I've confirmed some of these assumptions. Now I want to isolate that building. I want to cut it off from the outside world. The purpose of isolation is twofold. One, I want to cut off the enemy from their ability to have reinforcements come from the outside in. I also, secondarily, want to cut them off from being able to escape from that building, or retrograde or withdrawal. And so how can I integrate small UAS into that process? Well, I can have FPVs going in and striking positions. I can have ISR on likely avenues of approach or egress, depending on what my MLCOA is, my enemy's most likely course of action. From there, I mean, again, if I have identified the machine gun position in an enemy defense, okay, cool. I'm going to send an FPV to go strike that position, or at least maybe provide some form of cover if I have an FPV hovering outside of that position. Most likely, if they're not totally blind, then they're going to pick up and move that position, effectively then providing some sort of cover or suppression by drone for my team. Moving into the next step of Rig C, we got gain a foothold. And so we define gain a foothold, and hang with me here, via the funding or the fundamentals of breaching, which is the SOSRA acronym. So within gain a foothold, we've got SOSRA. That's long-standing traditional doctrine from the Marine Corps of suppression, obscuration, secure, reduce, and assault. So that's the process in which engineers use to get from point A to B and breach an obstacle. So when we're gaining a foothold into our objective building, we're using the SOSRA process that we learned from engineers. And so that's the acronym there. And so again, I'd ask myself, okay, now I've isolated, I've cut this building off, and now I want to gain a foothold into the building via the SOSRA process. How am I going to use drones to do that? Well, again, we've got drones that are up observing. We can also, I don't know, maybe you can have a dynamic charge that is put onto an FPV and it can serve to breach open the front door of an objective building. Why put a Marine in that position to go do it if you don't have to? Could you throw an explosive charge that's going to go create a lot of shock that you can then exploit through the breach? That's one potential option. I'm sure you can think of a few other options to integrate. From there, SOSRA fundamentals are done. We've isolated the objective. We've got our support squad suppressing the front-facing apertures of that building that we're looking at. We have communicated and set conditions effectively up until this point, and now we throw smoke or some form of obscuration. Another potential integration here is as we see FPVs and drones evolve, can we almost throw on some type of EW or almost like a localized EMP capability onto these drones that could aid in our ability to obscure the enemy and their ability to see us? Can we blind them not only with smoke and confusion and obscuration, but can we apply some deception and a little bit more chaos with drones and EW? I think we absolutely could. From there, we secure a foothold into the building, and are the first Marines that make entry at this point, establish connecting files, right? So we've got our traffic cop, as we call it, that is responsible for the flow of follow-on forces from across the road or wherever we were to bring more forces in to clear or seize that building. And we've also got our hall boss that is responsible for doing the same and flowing forces internal to the building. From there, lastly, after we have seized that objective, we have flowed forces and effectively accomplished our mission. Okay, what's next? Is that where we're stopping, or are we moving on to another follow-on action? So the last step of Rig C is to consolidate and reorganize. And so that's exactly what we do. Redistribute ammo, make sure our TO, our task organization, is good. We don't need to rotate roles and responsibilities, so on and so forth. That is the Rig C and the SOSRA process that the Marine Corps is using, and that is doctrinal. And so now, using that format, we just talked through how some potential ways that you can integrate drones into that.
Oh, brother LT, you're setting up a cluster here. I can see how that works in a small squad, 7, 8, 10, 12 Marines. But what happens when you integrate that into a larger fire with combined arms? You're talking about chaos. How does everybody get on the same page?
I think it's easier said than done, and it's something that we need to refine in training. Again, if we tried to go out and do this thing tomorrow as a larger joint force, we would absolutely get it figured out, but it would be a little rusty. I think to do this effectively, it needs to start in training, and it needs to happen yesterday. But conceptually, the Marine Corps is already very, very good at combined arms. I don't think this needs to create so much confusion and chaos for the leaders that we lose our minds and forget the basics of combined arms. You can already give a battalion fire support coordination center a mixed section of skids, artillery, naval guns, 81s, and so on and so forth. You can already give them a full load of fire support, indirect fire support assets, and make them deconflict and plan and integrate effectively. I think this is just one other tool that can help. So I don't think it needs to derail anything, and honestly, I don't think it's that hard. We just need to clearly define what does right look like as we begin to define what integration is. Because I think what we see a lot right now in Ukraine is that there's just less strict rules on the tactical employment. Whereas I know within the Department of War, we are not going to loosen the rules up to where there's so much left and right lateral limit for the commander. Like that, there needs to be a process so that we don't begin breaking our own rules. And what I mean by that is the deconfliction methods require more precision from the leaders. We're not just going to give every single Marine a drone and tell them, yep, you don't need to coordinate with anyone and you can launch it up and do what you need to do. That's where we start running into unintended, what I say all the time, second and third order effects. We will not let that happen.
How do we bring new Marines, enlisted officers, into the ranks without starting with drones on day one? Isn't that new modern warfare? Doesn't that have to be part and parcel with training on day one?
It absolutely has to be training on day one. We talked about this a little bit last episode, but I want training to focus on stressing the Marine out as much as possible. I want to put them in a chaotic, heinous environment that they are just exhausted and terrified of drones. And I think we can build that fear in a controlled environment and then slowly begin to expose and teach how to counteract it with things like passive countermeasures. Understanding your signature lets you then teach your Marines how to develop better TTPs in building their protection around their signature, your reaction to sUAS, depending on if it's an ISR drone that you see or if it's an FPV coming at you, what do you do? So all of these training focus points, forcing home dispersion, we want to simulate as much of this. And again, I'll go back to the thing we talked about a few weeks ago of stress inoculation. The more comfortable you are with being uncomfortable, the better you will perform in combat.
So does this require a different skill set for Marine Corps leaders?
I think it requires us at all levels to take a look at some of our preconceived notions or some of our, this is the way it's always been. This is the status quo. This is how we're going to keep doing it. I think it just requires us to have a honest look at the tactics, techniques, and procedures that we have in place right now, and maybe some of the standard operating procedures, and just I don't know, do we need to update them? We should be constantly trying to evolve and not just catch up to current threats, but look another 10 years in the future and always be outcycling any adversary that we could potentially find. And so if we find ourselves getting comfortable, we know that complacency kills. That's one of the most common sayings that Marines will hear. And as soon as we get comfortable, we get complacent. So if we get comfortable with where we're at right now, which I hope to God we're not, then we're going to start having a lot more unintended effects occur here very soon.
Well, it would seem to me with this advancement in technology that decision-making almost needs to be decentralized down to the individual Marine.
100%. I mean, that is why we started this, I think why we started this podcast series off with talking about the mindset of the individual warfighter. And if that is not what we're focusing on at the end of the day, then I think we've got it all wrong. So we need every single human, every single Marine, every single person that's on our team to understand the bigger picture. The reason that the Marine Corps is effective and that we fight and win is because we have the ability to execute decentralized decision-making and based off of commander's intent. One of the most common, I think, downfalls of some of our adversaries is it's so centralized. And as soon as we centralize actions, you're building in hesitation and reliance on hire to go ahead and execute. And that's just, we can't, the Marine Corps cannot ever let that happen. And I don't think we ever will, but that's why we're so successful.
Brother, we talk about Moore's Law, the doubling of computer processing speed. I mean, it's just going through the roof. When you look at all other technological advances, certainly technology is advancing so much faster than our human ability to cope and understand. Aren't we setting ourselves up for an enormous disparity? How do we even address that?
I mean, as technology improves and as we start looking at the future, and now I'm truly speaking future battlefield, because I don't think a lot of the capabilities that I'm about to talk about have really been seen, maybe totally effective yet. I think there might be an introduction of them, but I don't think truly drone swarms and AI-enabled warfighting functions, if you will, I don't think we've seen that quite yet. But there's been a lot of critiques and criticism over, people are overreacting about small UAS. It's really not that crazy. There's been a million other changes in the history of warfare that have been far more monumental than what we're seeing with drones. And while I won't disagree with all of those statements, I do think that there seems to be, from my perspective, that some of us are trying to ignore this problem until it goes away. And I don't think that that's a very good mindset to look at it with. So when we think of, what's next, where is this headed in the family of not just small UAS, but the family of autonomous systems at large, the second we see AI, true autonomous decision-making in a drone, now some of the things that we talk about with EW and jamming, if I'm able to program a drone and arm it and tell it, hey, these are the types of targets I want you to look for. This is the area I want you to look for. And the second it launches, I don't touch it. I don't control it. It goes and finds its own targets and destroys them based on its own analysis of what you've told it for the situation that it's going into. If that doesn't put a lump in your throat a little bit of the harsh reality of, I think, where we're very quickly heading, I don't know what will. But I mean, AI-assisted targeting speeds up the decision-making. This thing we call the kill chain, our ability to find, fix, and target. There's a lot of steps that we have in the military to do that safely, make sure we're not killing civilians unnecessary or having unnecessary collateral damage in targeting. But if I've got an AI-enabled drone or weapon system, who is the ultimate approval authority and process? And where does that lie? Is it the person? I mean, this goes back to an argument I remember in like a high school coding class of, if we're building the code for an autonomous driving, like a self-driving car, it pulls up to a crosswalk and it sees right now, if it keeps going its same direction, it's going to hit an old man crossing the road, or it has a decision to make and turn to the right, and it'll hit a family of 3 or something, right? Like, whichever decision it makes, who is responsible for the decision that an autonomous system makes? I don't know. I think it's a valid question, and it's something that I think about quite often.
God forbid that we ever come to blows with a nation like China, but we're talking about technology that could be superior and advanced even to ours, right? I mean, are we looking at potential technology stalemates? You talk about an AI and autonomous systems. I grew up in the 60s. I watched Star Trek with Captain Kirk, William Shatner, and I see these little handheld devices, and now it's called an iPhone or an Android. I watched the Jetsons cartoons, and now I'm seeing autonomous taxi cabs in San Francisco. Is there not at some point a stalemate where their technology is equal to ours and or better than ours?
I think there's absolutely a potential for one side, whichever country is the first to truly get and weaponize general artificial intelligence that can truly change the course of the future battlefield. Because once that cat's out of the bag, what is stopping it? I mean, something that you said a minute ago that kind of piqued my curiosity or my mindset a little bit was AI on AI. And when you've got an autonomous system that is making decisions and running algorithms and defining what are the most likely courses of action that the enemy is going to take, where are their centers of gravity, what's their critical vulnerability, what gap can I exploit, as they're going through all of these questions. And now you've got two sides that both have this capability, and it can't be wrong because it's got data on its side. Then what does that look like? Who wins in that one? And furthermore, I mean, what I would argue is, and this, this reminds me of the book Ender's Game, one of my favorite books that I read all the time. Go read that book again if you haven't read it recently. But I think one of the things that makes Ender so effective in some of the battles is, he's able to think outside the box. Whereas if you have an AI system that can tell you the 100 most likely things that are going to happen, and this is your highest percentage of your chance for success, then all the commander has to do is look at that and read that and say, okay, cool. Yeah, approved. Or maybe it's to a point where the commander doesn't actually approve it, and the commander is out of the loop in that decision-making cycle. And that's where I think it gets really scary. So I don't know. I mean, it's an absolute rabbit hole, but it's a question that I think if it's not defined and talked through clearly now, it's going to have massive implications in the next battlefield. I think our key to success is not only to stay adaptive and kind of think and lean forward into some of these questions, but we need to understand that if we don't develop this capability, our adversaries are actively working to develop it. It's almost like the doctrine of mutually assured destruction. You need to have this capability to justify not using it, but we have to have it.
Lost LT, as we get ready to close, I want you to get out your crystal ball. Take a look at the year 2030. That's 5 years from now. And raise these in rhetorical questions that can't possibly be answered, because 3 years ago, I would have not told you that AI was a thing, autonomous or not, that we would even have to be concerned about. And 10 years ago, I would have not said that sUAS drones were a thing we would ever have to be worried about. I never thought about the word swarm until 5 or 6 years ago. Looking 5 years down ahead in your crystal ball, what keeps you up at night?
I am most concerned with how drones and AI in general will continue to evolve. I think this family of unmanned systems, what I'm most worried about is the unmanned surface vehicles, so USVs on the water. One of our centers of gravity in the military is our fleet and our aircraft carriers. You take the same model of an FPV drone that costs maybe under $1,000, and it can go eliminate a tank that's millions of dollars. God forbid there is a USV that's able to evade detection and do the same to one of our aircraft carriers. That absolutely keeps me up at night. And I think the risk is massive. There are countermeasures and justifications in place, but the what if scenario there is very, very concerning. There are drones already today that have the capability of this thing called pixel lock, where it can look at a target and remain outside of jamming range and lock its screen onto the target. And even if it's being jammed, the jamming is ineffective because it's through AI locking its sensor onto a pixel on its screen, and it's locked in on that vector, and it's going to fly in and detonate regardless of the jamming. So, I mean, we see that capability in 2025. What's that going to look like in 5 years from now? And what's it all going to look like? You mentioned the swarm a minute ago. The psychological impact of a swarm, that is, I would almost say heartbreaking. If we don't have a great capability to defend against that, it's insane to picture any size unit on a front line anywhere, that oh shit moment when you see a swarm of drones coming over the horizon. And if you don't have that same capability on your side, then you better hope you got very accurate marksmanship skills. And that's, I don't like the hope, Koa.
So you're saying hope is a strategy?
Yeah, that I don't think hope is a strategy, but that's a common one when we don't have a better answer to say. So,
oh man, folks, you've been listening to Lost LT's Razor with Lost LT and the Old Man. Join us again next week for another episode on wherever you get your podcasts. Lost LT fires a new podcast episode downrange every Tuesday. Make sure to follow the Lost LT's Razor on Spotify and Instagram so you get the weekly reminders. So until next time, Semper Fi.
all right.